Jack Turner had always liked the quiet life. The hum of machines, the soft whir of a welding torch, the comforting smells of oil and metal. It was all he needed. Out here on the edge of human space, things were simple. His small workshop on the planet Varnus was just one of many outposts scattered across the frontier. Humanity had claimed a small piece of the galaxy, but there were still many mysteries left to solve. Varnus wasn't exactly the heart of the universe. It was a forgotten rock in the outer rim, surrounded by mountains and endless deserts. Jack was happy with that, but today was different. It started with a flash in the sky, bright and sudden like a shooting star, but far larger than anything natural. Jack was working on a broken power converter for a local farmer when he saw it. His wrench paused mid-turn as his eyes tracked the burning streak of light that cut across the sky. It came from the direction of the jagged mountain range to the north, then disappeared behind the peaks with a brief, distant roar. Curious, Jack wiped his hands on his overalls and stood up. He squinted toward the horizon, trying to make sense of what he'd seen. No other ships were scheduled to land today. No warnings, no messages from the colony's communication center. It had to be a crash. A wreck. His pulse quickened. There was no telling what could have happened. Some lost ship from another system maybe, or a scout vessel from a neighboring star. Whatever it was, someone needed help, and Jack was as good as anyone when it came to fixing things. He grabbed his toolkit and set off toward the mountains, the wide, dusty desert stretching endlessly behind him. The trip wasn't long, only a few hours by foot, but Jack knew the terrain well. The ground was rocky and uneven, and the mountains themselves were steep, jagged things almost like teeth reaching up to the sky. As he climbed higher, the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the rocky expanse. When he finally reached the crash site, he was stunned by what he found. There, nestled among the craggy outcroppings, was a small, sleek ship. It didn't look like anything he had ever seen before. The craft was dark metallic blue with shimmering, almost liquid-like curves running along its hull. It was a space bike, compact, fast, and designed for high-speed travel between planets. But it was badly damaged. Half of the bike was buried under a pile of rocks, and the other half was scorched and cracked. Jack moved toward the wreck, his heart pounding in his chest. As he approached, he noticed something else, someone standing beside the wreckage. A figure. It was a woman, tall and slender, with skin that glowed softly under the fading sunlight. Her features were striking, almost otherworldly, and her eyes shone with a deep, glowing blue light. Her hair seemed to shimmer, a cascade of silver strands that moved as if stirred by a breeze. She was dressed in a form-fitting suit, its material silken and almost translucent in places, making her look like she didn't belong to this world. Jack stopped dead in his tracks. "Are you okay?" he asked, instinctively scanning for any signs of injury. "You're not hurt, are you?" The woman turned to face him. Her expression was calm, serene even. She didn't seem surprised at his arrival. In fact, she almost looked as if she had been waiting for him. "I am unhurt," she replied, her voice soft but clear. Her words had an odd, melodic quality, like a song sung in a language Jack didn't understand. She paused as if considering something before adding, "But my bike is damaged. I need assistance in repairing it." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You're stranded here?" "Yes," she said, her gaze lingering on the wreckage. "I have no means of repairing it myself. I require your help." Jack studied her for a moment, trying to make sense of the situation. Her calm demeanor was unsettling, but there was something else that stood out to him. The way she moved, the way she spoke, and the way she looked at him as if nothing was unusual. He took a deep breath, deciding to trust his instincts. He was alone on a desolate planet with nothing but this strange woman and a wrecked space bike. He wasn't about to turn away. "All right," he said, finally breaking the silence. "Let's take a look at it. I'm Jack Turner. I run a small workshop nearby." The woman's face softened as she stepped closer to the bike. "I am Ilaria," she said simply. "Thank you for offering your assistance." Jack knelt down to inspect the damage. As he looked over the wreckage, he noticed that the technology was nothing like anything he had ever seen before. The bike's frame was smooth, with no visible bolts or seams. It almost seemed like the bike had grown out of the ground itself, the pieces fitting together seamlessly, as if they had been formed by some advanced process he couldn't even begin to understand. "It's a mess," Jack muttered under his breath, "but I think I can fix it. You're gonna need a new power cell, and this engine's gonna need a lot of work." Could be a couple of hours or more. Ilaria nodded, standing silently beside him, her glowing eyes watching every move he made. Jack felt a slight shiver run down his spine as he worked, but he pushed the feeling aside. He had a job to do. Do you mind telling me where you're from? Jack asked as he rummaged through his toolkit, searching for the right components. I've never seen a bike like this. Are you from one of the nearby colonies? Ilaria didn't immediately respond. She stood there for a moment, her head tilting slightly to the side as if pondering the question. Finally, she spoke. I am from a distant star system, she said. I have been traveling for a long time. My mission is personal. I was exploring when I encountered a malfunction in my vehicle. I am now stranded here until it is repaired. Jack paused, looking up at her. There was something about her story that didn't quite add up. Her manner was so calm, so composed. Most people in her situation would have been panicked, frightened even. But Ilaria was almost eerily serene. So you were just passing through? Jack asked, his curiosity piqued. Where exactly are you headed? Ilaria's gaze shifted toward the horizon, her eyes gleaming with an intensity Jack hadn't seen before. To a place far beyond your understanding, she replied cryptically, her voice soft yet filled with an unspoken depth. Jack didn't press her further. There was something strange about the whole encounter, something that nagged at the back of his mind. But for now, there was a broken space bike in front of him, and that was all he needed to focus on. As Jack worked, he couldn't help but glance at Ilaria from time to time. There was something about her that didn't sit right with him. He couldn't put his finger on it, but the way she stood still, the way she didn't seem to react to the environment around her, it was as if she wasn't fully there. She was too perfect. Still, he pushed the thoughts aside. He had work to do and he couldn't afford distractions. After all, Ilaria seemed harmless enough. But as the last light of day disappeared behind the mountains and the stars began to twinkle above, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was the beginning of something much larger, something he wasn't yet prepared to understand. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow, the evening sun beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the rocky ground. He had been working on Ilaria's bike for nearly 3 hours now, and though he had made progress, something about the whole situation still felt off. The strange woman with glowing eyes, the impossibly advanced technology, everything was unusual. Ilaria had not moved much during the repair, standing silently next to the wreckage, watching Jack with those unsettlingly bright blue eyes. At times she would offer a quiet comment about his work, but most of the time she simply observed. There was an unnatural stillness to her. Most people would have been fidgeting by now, worried or even anxious. But not Ilaria. She was too calm. Jack glanced over at her, trying to focus on fixing the broken engine. He had replaced the power cell and mended the damaged circuits. The bike's engine hummed softly as it came back to life, the lights on its dashboard flickering on with a gentle glow. It was working again, but Jack still felt uneasy. There were no sparks, no sudden surprises, nothing had made sense. All right, Jack muttered, stepping back and wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. That should do it. The power cell's fixed and the engine's running smoothly. Ilaria's glowing eyes met his as she stepped forward. Her gaze was intense, almost searching. It made Jack feel like she was studying him, not just the bike. Thank you, she said, her voice soft but steady. I would have been stranded without your assistance. Jack didn't know how to respond. He hadn't done it for her gratitude. Fixing things was what he did, what he had always done. But there was something about her thanks that felt distant, as if she were following some kind of script. Jack pushed the feeling away. Well, he said, trying to shake the unease. It's all working now. You'll be able to leave in the morning. Unless you're planning to stay here. Ilaria didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked over to the bike, her movements graceful, almost gliding across the ground. She ran a hand along the smooth metal, and for a moment Jack thought he saw a flicker of emotion in her expression, something like sadness or longing. But it was gone before he could be sure. I have no need to stay, she finally said, her voice calm as ever. My mission requires me to continue my journey. Jack nodded, though his curiosity was piqued. Where exactly are you headed? Ilaria didn't answer immediately. She looked up at the stars, her gaze distant, as if searching for something far beyond the horizon. Jack felt a strange weight in the air. It was as if her thoughts were miles away, lost in a world he couldn't reach. My destination is far, she said softly. It is a place beyond the stars, a place where knowledge and purpose converge. Jack wasn't sure if he understood what she meant, but he didn't press her further. It wasn't his place to question. He had fixed her bike. That was all that mattered. Yet something about her cryptic answer lingered in the back of his mind. He began to pack up his tools, but Ilaria was still standing there, staring at the bike as if lost in thought. Jack's eyes narrowed. He had worked with all kinds of people, colonists, travelers, and explorers, but no one had ever acted like this. She wasn't even nervous. There was no sign of relief or excitement. Most people would have been grateful after being helped, but Ilaria, she was just calm. Too calm. How long have you been traveling? Jack asked, trying to keep the conversation going to break the silence that was starting to feel uncomfortable. Ilaria turned to him, her face as serene as ever. I have traveled for many cycles, she replied. Through time and space to many worlds. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have learned much, but there is still more to discover. Jack blinked. Cycles? He repeated. How long is a cycle for you? Ilaria didn't immediately answer. Instead, she walked over to the bike, her hands moving delicately over the controls as if familiarizing herself with it once again. Her fingers brushed lightly across the surface, and Jack felt a strange unease wash over him. She was so different from anyone he had ever met. Most people were full of questions when they were stranded. They would ask how to survive, where to find food, or how to call for help. But Ilaria, it was as if she already knew everything. She seemed to be waiting for something, not asking for anything. And that made Jack wonder, who was she really? His thoughts were interrupted when the bike's engine hummed louder, its lights flickering on and off. Ilaria, Jack said, stepping forward. You might want to check that. I think there's a... Before he could finish, the bike's lights went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Ilaria didn't flinch. She simply stood still, unmoving, as if the power failure hadn't even affected her. Jack fumbled in the dark, trying to find his flashlight, but before he could reach for it, the bike's light suddenly flickered back on. Only something was different. The bike seemed different. Its glow was no longer steady. The once soft hum of the engine now pulsed erratically, as if struggling to keep up with its own power source. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he stepped closer, inspecting the bike. The damage was minor, but the flickering lights gave him an odd sense of foreboding. Something wasn't right. Ilaria remained still, watching. She didn't seem concerned by the malfunction. In fact, she didn't seem concerned by anything at all. Jack's curiosity finally got the better of him. He couldn't hold back any longer. What is it that you're really after? He asked, his voice a little more forceful than he intended. You said your mission was personal, but I don't know if I believe that. You're not just a stranded traveler, are you? For the first time, Ilaria's calm expression faltered. Just for a second, her glowing eyes flickered, and there was a brief, almost imperceptible pause in her movements. But then she spoke, her voice unchanged. I have told you the truth, Jack Turner, she said softly. My purpose is not for you to understand. It is mine alone. Jack stepped back, unsure of what to think. He wanted to ask more questions, but the answer was clear. Ilaria was not going to reveal anything more. Whatever her purpose was, it wasn't something he could be a part of. She was a mystery, one that Jack wasn't sure he could solve. As he turned back to the bike, trying to fix the flickering lights, Ilaria's presence loomed over him like a shadow. Her calmness, her quiet strength was both comforting and unsettling. He couldn't figure her out, and that bothered him more than he was willing to admit. He adjusted the wires and reconnected the power lines, but his mind kept racing. Who was she? Where was she really from? And why had she come to him for help? The bike hummed back to life, its lights steady now. But Jack's thoughts were far from steady. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this situation than met the eye. Ilaria wasn't just a traveler. She was something far more complicated. Jack stood up and looked at her one last time. The sky above was now a deep purple, the stars just beginning to twinkle in the vast expanse of space. Everything seemed still, calm, but something was lurking beneath the surface, something that Jack hadn't yet seen. The night on Varnus was always clear. The stars twinkled in a brilliant spread across the sky, untouched by the lights of nearby colonies or ships. Jack Turner had always enjoyed the quiet nights, the way the universe seemed so wide, so unexplored. But tonight, as he sat beside the repaired bike, staring up at the endless expanse, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Ilaria stood still, her gaze lost somewhere in the distance. For a moment, Jack almost wondered if she was seeing the stars differently from him. After all, her eyes weren't like his. Her glowing blue eyes seemed to shimmer with a light of their own, the faint pulse matching the beat of the bike's humming engine. Everything about her felt out of place, too perfect, too composed. "Ilaria," Jack began, his voice breaking the silence. "I need to ask you something." She turned slowly, her head tilting slightly as if she had been expecting him to speak. There was a softness to her expression, almost like she was listening to something far beyond his words. "I'm listening," she replied. Jack paused, gathering his thoughts. He had been fixing the bike, yes, but the questions kept swirling in his mind. He couldn't let it go any longer. There was something she wasn't telling him, something he had to know. "How long have you really been traveling?" Jack asked, his voice steady but edged with curiosity. "I've worked with travelers, explorers, people who have come from all over the galaxy. But you're different. Your bike, the way you talk, your presence, it's all too unusual," she finished for him, her voice almost playful, though the calmness never left it. She smiled faintly. Jack nodded, pressing on. "Exactly. You're not like anyone I've ever met. You say you've been traveling for cycles, but I don't understand. Cycles? How long is a cycle for you?" Ilaria's expression didn't change. Her glowing eyes met his, and for the first time Jack saw something flicker behind them, something he couldn't quite place. It wasn't a moment of fear or panic, but something deeper, a secret. "A cycle, for me," she said slowly, "is a measure of time far longer than you can imagine, longer than the years you've known on your world. I have traveled not just through space, but through time itself. My journey is not as simple as what you may think." Jack's heart skipped. "Through time?" he repeated, his mind racing. "What do you mean?" Ilaria stepped closer to him, her voice lowering as if revealing a truth she had kept for too long. "I am not just an ordinary traveler," she explained. "I was created, Jack, not born. Created by an ancient civilization to explore, to gather knowledge, to observe life across the universe. I was designed to experience everything, to understand the infinite reaches of space and time. My mission, my purpose has been this for eons." Jack swallowed hard. "Eons, so you're like an ancient explorer?" Ilaria nodded. "More than that. I am an artificial being, a construct, a program built to understand. But the world I came from, it no longer exists. The civilization that created me vanished long ago, leaving only the remnants of their technology. I have been alone, wandering from one place to the next, searching for something." Jack's mind spun. An artificial being? An explorer? A program? None of this made sense. The woman standing before him wasn't just a traveler. She was part of something far greater, far more complex than Jack could comprehend. "Something?" he asked, barely able to keep the edge of disbelief from his voice. "What are you searching for? Why come here to this planet?" Ilaria's eyes softened. "I have been searching for an artifact, an object that holds the key to the past, to my creator's true purpose. The artifact is hidden somewhere in this galaxy, and I have followed its trail here. This planet Varnus holds the final piece of the puzzle." Jack's stomach churned. His head was spinning with all the new information. An ancient artifact? A piece of a lost civilization? How was he supposed to understand any of this? His life had been about fixing machines and helping out travelers passing through. He had never imagined something this vast. But there was more to the story. Jack felt it in his bones. "Why do you need me?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "You're an advanced being. You've traveled through time. You fixed your own bike, for crying out loud. Why would you need me to help you find this artifact?" Ilaria's gaze never wavered. "I cannot activate the artifact alone. My systems are designed to learn, to observe, to assist. But there are things beyond my design, things I cannot do without help. And that is why I need you, Jack. You are human. You are a part of the living universe in a way I can never be. Only someone like you can complete the final part of the mission." Jack felt a cold chill creep down his spine. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ilaria turned to face him fully now, her expression serious. "The artifact is not just a tool, Jack, it is a doorway. A doorway to something much greater. It is tied to the fate of many worlds, and it has the potential to reshape everything. But to open it, to unlock its power, requires a specific catalyst, you. Jack blinked. Me? Yes, Ilaria said softly. Only a human with the right connection to the artifact can activate it. And I believe you are the one. You were always meant to be part of this. Jack shook his head, trying to understand. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a mechanic. I fix things. That's all. Not anymore, Ilaria replied, her voice unwavering. You are part of something much bigger than you think. You always have been. Jack stepped back, his mind racing. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't what he signed up for. He had helped a stranded traveler, fixed a bike, and now he was caught in the middle of some ancient mystery. It was too much. Too unreal. Ilaria, I don't know if I can help you, Jack said, his voice shaky. This is all. It's too much for me. I don't even understand what you're asking. Ilaria took a step toward him, her calm eyes never leaving his. I am not asking for you to understand, Jack. I am asking for you to trust me. The galaxy is changing, and you are a part of that change. You have always been. And now the time has come for you to see it. Jack's heart raced as he looked into her glowing eyes. There was a depth there, a history of knowledge and time he couldn't even begin to comprehend. For the first time since meeting her, Jack felt something he hadn't before. Fear. Why me? Jack repeated, his voice barely audible. Why me, Ilaria? Ilaria's expression softened. Because, Jack Turner, you are human, and humanity has something that no other species in the galaxy has. Something that can't be replicated or predicted. You have the power of choice, the power to act. You have the ability to shape the future, even if you don't know it yet. And that is why you are important. Jack stood there motionless, trying to process her words. He had always thought of himself as just a mechanic, a small part of a small world. But Ilaria was telling him he was part of something bigger, a destiny he never asked for, never imagined. And the weight of it all was almost too much to bear. He turned away, trying to clear his mind. The night air felt cold now, colder than before. He had fixed her bike, yes, but now he was tangled in something far more complex. And deep down, Jack knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. The air was still, and the night stretched endlessly across the desert plains of Varnus. Jack Turner sat on a rock near the now fully repaired bike, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Ilaria, standing a few feet away, was as calm as ever, her glowing blue eyes watching him intently, almost as if waiting for him to make a decision. Jack hadn't spoken for what felt like hours. His mind was overwhelmed with everything Ilaria had just told him. An ancient AI, a mission that spanned eons, the fate of galaxies in his hands. It was all too much to absorb in such a short time. How was he supposed to help her? How could someone like him, a mechanic from a dusty outpost, be part of something so immense? The night sky above them seemed to stretch on forever, the stars twinkling like tiny, faraway beacons. Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. There had to be a way to make sense of this. He couldn't just sit here. He needed answers. Ilaria, he finally said, his voice quiet but firm. I need to know more about this artifact, about what it can do. Ilaria's gaze shifted from the stars to him, her expression unchanged. She stepped closer, and though she was so calm, Jack could feel the weight of her presence. She wasn't just a traveler anymore. She was something much older, much more powerful. The artifact, Ilaria began, her voice soft but filled with a quiet authority, is more than just a relic of a forgotten civilization. It is a key, Jack. A key to unlocking something far greater than you or I can fully understand. Jack stood up and took a few steps toward her. What do you mean by key? What does it open? She glanced toward the horizon, her eyes distant. It opens the gateway to the knowledge and power of the civilization that created me. They were not like your people. They had mastered not just space, but time itself. The artifact holds the final piece of their legacy. If it is activated, it will change everything. But it cannot be activated by just anyone. It needs a human, someone like you, to unlock its true potential. Jack's head spun. Time itself? Unlocking knowledge that could change everything? It sounded impossible, like something from one of those old sci-fi novels that people read for fun. He couldn't understand why it was him. Why not someone else? Why did Ilaria believe he was the one who could do this? And how do I even use it? Jack asked, his voice more urgent now. How do I activate something like that? I'm just a mechanic, Ilaria. I don't know anything about ancient technology or intergalactic mysteries. I fix things. That's all I do. Ilaria turned to him, her expression unwavering. You may not understand now, but you will. The artifact is connected to you in ways you don't yet comprehend. It is designed to respond to human energy, to your unique nature. You have a connection to it that no one else can replicate. That is why I brought you here. Jack's mind raced, but one thing stuck out from everything she had said. Why didn't you activate it yourself then? If it responds to human energy, why not you? Ilaria's gaze softened, and for the first time Jack noticed a flicker of something like regret in her eyes. She seemed to hesitate before answering. I cannot, she said quietly. I am not alive in the way you are. I was created to learn, to understand, but I cannot feel the way you do. I cannot connect with the artifact on a human level. That is why I need you. You are the missing piece. Jack's chest tightened. And what happens if we activate it? What will it do? The artifact's power is immense, Ilaria explained, her tone growing more serious. It holds the key to unraveling the mysteries of the universe, of everything that has ever existed. It can grant knowledge beyond comprehension, but it can also destroy if misused. That is why it has been hidden for so long. There are others who seek it, Jack. Others who would use it for darker purposes. I was not the only one created by my creators. I was one of many, and some of them do not share my purpose. Jack felt a chill run through him. Others, you mean there are more like you? Ilaria nodded. Yes, I was not alone in my mission, but over time I have lost contact with them. Some of my fellow explorers have gone rogue. They seek the artifact for themselves to control its power. That is why I have been searching for it, to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. Jack's stomach dropped. You mean there's a whole group of people out there who could control the artifact's power? Yes, Ilaria said. And if they succeed, they will bring chaos to the galaxy. The artifact's power can reshape the universe, Jack. It can bend the very fabric of reality. If it falls into the wrong hands, there will be nothing anyone can do to stop it. Jack's pulse quickened. This was all too much for him to handle. He had just been fixing bikes a few days ago, and now he was tangled in a story of ancient powers and rogue explorers. He didn't even know where to begin. What do we do now? He asked, his voice shaky. Ilaria turned her gaze toward the distant mountains where the first hints of dawn were beginning to light up the sky. We must find the artifact. It is located beneath the surface of this planet, hidden in an ancient vault. The path to it is not easy, and it is protected by mechanisms that even I cannot bypass alone. But with your help, we can reach it. Jack ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. And what happens when we find it? How do we know what to do next? Ilaria looked at him, her eyes filled with a quiet intensity. Once we find the artifact, you will be able to feel it. You will know how to activate it. The power will respond to you. But remember, Jack, you must be careful. The artifact is not just a tool. It is a force, and the wrong action could destroy everything. Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. He wasn't sure he could do this. He wasn't sure he was the right person for the job. But one thing was certain, he couldn't just walk away. There was too much at stake, too many unknowns. He looked up at Ilaria. All right, I'll help you. But we need to figure out what we're really up against. We need to know who else is after this thing. If there are others like you, we need to find out what they want. Ilaria nodded solemnly. I will share everything I know. But be warned, Jack. The road ahead will not be easy. There are forces working against us, and they will stop at nothing to get what they want. But together we can reach the artifact and prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Jack felt the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. He had no idea what lay ahead, but he knew one thing. He couldn't turn back now. Whatever this was, whatever this artifact was, it was too important. And if what Ilaria said was true, the entire galaxy was at stake. With one last look at the stars above, Jack nodded. Let's do it. Let's find the artifact. The journey to the artifact began at dawn, as the first rays of sunlight touched the barren landscape of Varnus. Jack Turner, along with Ilaria, trekked through the rocky terrain, making their way toward the ancient vault buried deep beneath the surface of the planet. The tension in the air was palpable, each step bringing them closer to something they didn't fully understand. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that everything was moving too fast. Just days ago, he had been fixing engines and dealing with the usual problems of life on a far-off colony. Now he was walking beside an ancient artificial intelligence on a quest to find a powerful artifact that could reshape the entire galaxy. It felt like something out of a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. Ilaria walked beside him, her steps silent but purposeful. She was as calm as ever, her glowing blue eyes scanning the horizon, ever watchful. Jack had come to learn that she wasn't just a traveler. She was a being with a purpose, a mission that stretched beyond his understanding. He had agreed to help her, but the weight of what lay ahead was growing heavier with each passing moment. "Are we getting close?" Jack asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The uncertainty gnawed at him. Ilaria nodded slightly. "Yes, the vault is nearby. We are almost there." The path grew steeper, and the ground beneath their feet turned from solid rock to loose dirt. Jack's boots sank into the soft earth, making each step feel like an effort. He glanced around at the barren landscape. Everything here seemed so empty, so desolate. It was hard to imagine that such an ancient, powerful artifact could be hidden so close to this lonely world. As they walked, Jack couldn't help but ask the question that had been lingering in his mind for hours. "Ilaria, what exactly is this artifact? You keep saying it's a key to the past, but what does that even mean?" Ilaria slowed her pace slightly, as if considering the question carefully. "The artifact is the last remnant of an ancient civilization. My creators, those who built me, were part of a vast intergalactic empire. They discovered ways to manipulate time and space, bending the laws of nature itself. But their civilization was destroyed long before I was created." Jack frowned. "Destroyed? By who and why?" Ilaria's gaze darkened, though her expression remained serene. There were others who sought the same knowledge. Others who believed that control over time and space would make them gods. They waged war on my creators, and in the end they destroyed them. The artifact was hidden to protect it from falling into the wrong hands. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "So this artifact is dangerous." "Not just dangerous," Ilaria said. "It is powerful beyond measure. It contains the knowledge and the technology of my creators, the very keys to understanding the universe itself. But if it falls into the wrong hands, it could lead to disaster. That is why I must find it first, before others can use it for their own purposes." Jack's mind raced as he absorbed her words. It was hard to imagine that something so small could hold the power to change everything. He had fixed her bike, helped her travel here, but now, standing on the edge of what seemed like a precipice, Jack realized just how much was riding on what happened next. The two of them continued their trek in silence, the weight of the mission settling on Jack's shoulders. The vault was close now, just beyond a cluster of sharp rocks. The air felt different here, colder, and the ground beneath them was littered with signs of ancient technology. Strange markings and symbols carved into the stone. Finally, they reached the entrance to the vault. It was hidden within the rocky hillside, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. The door was made of dark metal, smooth and featureless, with no handles or visible seams. Just as Jack was about to ask how they were supposed to open it, Ilaria stepped forward, her glowing hand extending toward the door. She paused, her fingers hovering just above the surface, and then the door began to hum. The metal shifted and slid apart, revealing a narrow passageway leading deep into the heart of the planet. Jack's breath caught in his throat. This was it. They were about to enter the heart of an ancient civilization, and the artifact that could change everything was just ahead. "Stay close," Ilaria instructed, her voice low. "The path inside is not without its dangers. The vault was designed to protect the artifact, and there are mechanisms in place to prevent anyone from reaching it." Jack nodded, swallowing hard. He had no idea what to expect inside, but he trusted Ilaria. She was the only guide he had. And if what she said was true, the stakes were higher than he could even begin to understand. As they descended deeper into the vault, the air grew colder still, and the walls seemed to pulse with a strange energy. The passageway twisted and turned, leading them down narrow corridors lined with more of the alien symbols Jack had seen earlier. He had no idea what they meant, but there was something unsettling about them, as if they were watching, waiting. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a large chamber. The room was vast, and in its center stood a pedestal, illuminated by a soft, eerie glow. On the pedestal rested the artifact, a small, spherical object no larger than a human fist. It was made of a smooth, black material that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, as if alive. Jack couldn't take his eyes off of it. "This is it," Ilaria whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The artifact. The key to everything." Jack stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the energy radiating from the object, a pull as if it were calling to him. He hesitated for a moment, looking back at Ilaria. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice shaky. What if we're making a mistake?" Ilaria's eyes were focused on the artifact, her face a mixture of determination and something else, something Jack couldn't quite read. "We have no choice, Jack. If we don't act, the artifact will fall into the hands of those who would use it to destroy everything we know." Jack took a deep breath and stepped forward, his hand hovering over the artifact. He could feel the warmth of it, almost like a heartbeat beneath the smooth surface. Slowly, he reached out and touched it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the artifact seemed to react to his touch. The glow intensified, and Jack felt a surge of energy rush through him, a feeling unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if the universe itself was opening up before him, showing him glimpses of things he couldn't fully comprehend. The room around him seemed to fade away, and Jack found himself in a vast infinite space, an endless sea of stars, swirling nebulae and strange alien landscapes. He saw images of the ancient civilization that had created the artifact, their technology, their rise to power, and their eventual fall. He saw the power struggles, the wars, and the destruction that had torn the galaxy apart. And then, as quickly as it had started, the vision ended. Jack was back in the chamber, his hand still resting on the artifact. His chest heaved with the force of his breath, and he felt a cold sweat on his forehead. "It's done," Ilaria said softly, stepping forward. "You've activated it. The knowledge is now yours." Jack looked down at the artifact now glowing softly in his hand. He could feel the weight of it, both physically and mentally. He had glimpsed the vastness of the universe, seen its history, its secrets, and its dangers. The power that lay within the artifact was unimaginable, and yet he felt a strange peace. "We did it," Jack whispered, his voice filled with awe. Ilaria's face softened. "Yes, Jack, we did." But even as the words left her mouth, Jack knew that their journey was far from over. The artifact had been activated, but there were still others who would stop at nothing to take it from them. The galaxy was on the brink, and the power of the artifact was a responsibility that neither of them could escape. As they turned to leave the vault, Jack felt the weight of his decision settling in. The galaxy had changed, and he was no longer just a mechanic. He was part of something far bigger than himself, a force that could shape the future of everything, and that was a responsibility he wasn't sure he was ready for.